Story recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a war, action, and sci-fi film called Overlord. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. In 1944, during World War II, a squad of paratroopers is on a mission to destroy a radio jamming tower set up by Germans in an old church. As the plane nears the target location, Boyce, a timid soldier, quietly calms himself down before their descent. Some squad members include Tibbet, Rosenfeld, Grunauer, Chase, a photographer, and Ford, an explosives expert assigned on this mission after an exemplary performance in his last mission. The ride becomes shaky, causing Boyce to drop his chain. Tibbet grabs it quickly and bullies him for having a lucky charm. Boyce's performance in the army is unsatisfactory, making the other soldiers in his batch bully him. Moments later, Sergeant Renson, the squad leader, enters the main area of the aircraft to set some reminders before they land. He starts asking questions, and when he reaches Boyce, he fails to respond. Boyce's already low confidence has decreased even more, but the mission must continue. Sergeant Renson gives his final speech to the soldiers before returning to the cockpit. Hundreds of planes and ships make their way to France, and at the moment, all the fighters could do is wait and hope for the best. The aircraft starts to rumble, signaling that airstrikes are happening not so far away. As they get closer to the location, more explosions come along their way, but the aircraft manages to dodge it. The explosions become worse, and the other planes alongside them crash. The sight of it puts the rest of the soldiers in a state of panic, but the sergeant tries to calm them down by talking to them. Bullets from below penetrate through the plane, causing deaths among the squad members. The signal light in the plane turns red, which means that the soldiers are now on standby to jump out. Unfortunately, the plane catches fire, and some of the soldiers fatally fall toward the back, burning themselves. Some of the surviving soldiers manage to jump out of the aircraft after the signal goes green. Boyce struggles to compose himself. The whole situation overwhelms him in ways he has not experienced before. The sergeant pushes him out in the open air, where thousands of bullets are present. Boyce can see the battlefield in a bird's eye view, and he lets the moment sink in that this is it. This is the day that they have all been training for. He falls near a body of water and almost drowns in the process because he struggles to free himself from the parachute. Finally, he gets out of the water and secures a weapon with him before running to the woods. On his way to find other soldiers, Boyce finds the sergeant surrounded and taunted by German soldiers. Before attempting to attack and save the sergeant, Ford comes from behind Boyce to stop him. Both of the soldiers witness the execution of their leader, and Ford explains that the mission must be carried out. They continue to walk deeper into the woods, where they hear people approaching. Surviving soldiers reveal themselves, and all of them share a moment of joy in their reunion. The lot of them continue to advance across the field, hoping to find more American soldiers. Unfortunately, one of them missteps and triggers a landmine, so an explosion goes off, leaving them injured. Boyce gains consciousness and walks carefully to a safe spot. Survival is their utmost priority at the moment, but their mission is yet to be done. The group takes a break from walking and stumbles upon a dead animal carcass, which they find hard to identify. Its bone structure is different from a dog. Chase hints that the creature is a jackal, a biblical creature known as hell dogs. Tibbet dismisses the idea and refuses to believe in any myth. A distant noise catches Boyce's attention, so he signals the group that something or someone might be nearby. They await the footsteps and meet a girl named Chloe. She runs in fear of the Americans, but they catch up and hold her at gunpoint, where she is forced to lead them to an old church. Boyce comforts her by saying that she will not get hurt, but she has no choice but to help the Americans. All of them head to the village where the church is located, and at the entrance, Ford commands Boyce to keep an eye on Chloe while they check the premises. The commotion wakes up Chloe's neighbor, Mrs. Lessner, who reports her to the German guards for being out past curfew. The guards start to emerge, making Boyce hide and find a way to be out of their sight while they inspect Chloe, who manages to talk her way out. She lets the group take refuge in her house while they carry out their mission. A quick tour of the home is given to the soldiers just in case they need to hide. Tibbet hears a noise from a room upstairs, so he asks Chloe about it. According to her, her sick aunt lives with her and cuts the topic short. She also has a little brother named Paul, who she takes care of after German soldiers killed their parents. The soldiers settle in the tiny attic, where they gather their weapons and optimize their plan. A woman's scream interrupts their meeting. The commotion outside is caused by German soldiers executing one of the village residents for an unknown reason. Chloe then explains that the killings have become a norm in their village since the Germans have taken over. She warns the group that they cannot stay at her place because of frequent inspections, but Ford says that they only need 4 hours, so she agrees. The group gets into an argument about delaying the mission, but to their surprise, Boyce initiates the advance. In the sergeant's words, he reminds them that the planes cannot provide air support to the bases unless they take the tower down. However, Tibbet continues to bully him, discouraging the poor soldier that he is not built for battle. The angry Tibbet gets interrupted by Paul, who playfully asks him to have a game of baseball. He gets more hot-headed, so Chloe explains that Paul thinks all Americans play baseball, but he walks away. Boyce makes his way downstairs after Ford orders him to. On his way, he hears Chloe's aunt coughing in the room across the hallway, so he checks and sees a disfigured woman. Her skin looks wholly burnt, and she looks terribly ill. Chloe explains since her aunt returned from the church, which is the base of the Germans, she has not spoken since. She suspects that multiple experiments were done on her, causing physical and mental trauma. That night, Tibbet and Chase depart to check on the German base when the German soldiers conduct another inspection in the village. Ford hears it right away, so he and Boyce decide to stay put in the attic, where Paul hides as well. The German commander named Waffner knocks at Chloe's door to visit her. He coerces Chloe for intercourse. After she refuses to give in, he calls his men inside to check the attic after hearing a noise. Luckily, Paul blocks the entrance, passing a baseball to the German soldier, who spits at it and passes it back to him. To Boyce and Ford's relief, the German soldiers come down after almost catching them. Waffner threatens to send Chloe to the church to be fixed if she does not make love with him. Without a choice, she lets Waffner take advantage of her with evident disgust on her face. Boyce cannot ignore this and interrupts Waffner, who is now held at gunpoint. Ford is forced to follow suit and assist Boyce downstairs. He incapacitates and restrains Waffner, who is helpless in the current situation. Ford orders Boyce to move to the church tower, taking advantage of the night. Through the woods, Boyce makes his way to a nearby entrance to wait for the perfect time to enter. He sees a truck full of people with disfigured bodies who are almost on the brink of death. A project that experiments on humans for warfare is orchestrated by Dr. Schmidt, the head of the experimentation on French civilians and dead German soldiers. He goes to the site to see the failed tests get burned using a flamethrower. Confused about the intentions behind the experiments, Boyce goes on to conduct the mission and walks through the dark forest. A truck of German soldiers passes by, making him hide on the side of the road. An aggressive dog emerges from the dark and starts growling at him. It eventually chases him, leaving him no choice but to enter the truck. Boyce climbs the truck only to find dead soldiers piled up, so he panics as he covers himself with a lifeless body on top. They arrive at the church, and 2 soldiers unload the truck. This bids Boyce some time to sneak out and make his way through the tower. Surrounded by the enemies, every step he takes is crucial, as one mistake could cost him his life. He arrives at an underground section of the church, which looks like a prison. He hears muffled noises of people bound in small cells and hides as 2 inspectors arrive. Curious about the eerie sound coming from the cell, he peeks at it and sees a human and creature hybrid. Meanwhile, Tibbet and Chase safely make it back to Chloe's home. Boyce goes further into the experiment labs to get more answers about the questionable creatures. A body bag moves right above him, so he opens it and sees a person drenched in serum, who is barely alive. He then sees syringes laid on a table and gets one to bring a sample to Ford. He suspects that the red liquid serum is responsible for the disfiguration of the bodies that he saw. Not far from where he stands, he hears a voice asking for help. Willing to find out, Boyce opens a curtain and sees a bodiless head asking for help. Horror fills his face because it seems too difficult to believe. He leaves and discovers that Rosenfeld is bound to a bed, which he tries to free but gets interrupted once German doctors arrive. He sees a dead soldier being injected with the serum, but it is ineffective, so they dispose of his body. Boyce pulls a massive needle out of Rosenfeld to save and free him. Both of them utilize a tomb to find their way out of the church, which they are successful at. They arrive at the house, where Boyce finally breaks down after holding his emotions inside the church. Ford struggles to understand the words he is saying and realizes that Boyce has shifted his attention from the mission to the experiments. He shows Ford the serum, and they ask Waffner about it, but he does not disclose any helpful information, even as Ford tortures him. Waffner is in a helpless situation, but he remains loyal to his roots, making Ford more aggressive. Boyce tries to stop him, but he gets hurt in the process, making him walk out of the room. As the squad prepares to attack the church, Chase checks on Waffner, who attempts to escape and fatally shoots him after acting unconscious. Still, with a sack over his head, he blindly shoots around, but he is stopped after the group comes up. Before losing his final breath, Chase asks for his camera, and all of them dramatically witness his death. Boyce gets into the idea of injecting the serum into Chase, thinking that it would save him. In a matter of minutes, Chase gets up and is in prime condition. He even pokes his bullet wounds and is numb from the pain. Additionally, he gets stronger after the injection, which confuses everyone in the room. After some time, Chase mutates, his body slowly disfigures, and he turns violent. His eyes turn red as if he is about to transfer into something before Ford shoots him several times. Waffner then reveals that the serum can turn dead soldiers into mutated ones, turning them zombie-like. As they discuss this, Chase gets up. Before he could attack anyone, Boyce knocks him to the ground and pounds his head to death. The commotion makes the perfect time for Waffner to escape unnoticed. He comes down from the attic and grabs Paul upon his exit. A group of German soldiers comes to his rescue and takes Paul hostage. Chloe helplessly chases the army vehicle but is unable to, so she runs to Boyce for some help. Willing to help Chloe get her brother back, he refuses to follow orders from Ford, saying that their mission is more than just burning the church tower but also putting an end to the human experiments. Ford hesitantly agrees to the plan after being assured by Boyce that he can lead the group inside the church. In the church, Waffner arrives with the little boy and rushes to the lab as their first stop. Thinking that it would heal his wounds in an instant, Waffner injects the serum into him, despite the doctor stopping him. According to Dr. Schmidt, the serum has never been injected into the living, uncertain of the effects it would have on Waffner. Waffner takes 2 doses of the serum and lets out a hideous screech as his bones crack for no reason. He reveals to the people in the room that he has regained his strength, even though half of his face is blown off because of the shootout earlier. A sinister look comes from him without any sign of pain. Meanwhile, they plan their entrance to the church in a secluded part of the woods. They assign tasks to everyone who will split up during their mission. To initiate it, Chloe shows herself to the German soldiers, who chase her across town. They attempt to shoot her, but she successfully runs through the forest, pursued by one soldier to a nearby bridge. The soldier, thinking that he has cornered Chloe, gets off his bike to physically attack and force himself on her. However, upon being beaten down to the ground, Chloe lets out a laugh, then Ford knocks the soldier down. Next, they use the soldier that they strapped with explosives to make their way into the church. After the explosion injures several other soldiers, Rosenfeld and Tippett launch a frontal assault as a distraction, while Ford, Boyce, and Chloe enter the base using the sewers. This causes a massive commotion inside the base, as the soldiers are alerted that they are under attack by a small group of Americans. Inside, Boyce and Ford carry out their mission to rig the place, while Chloe refuses to wait and runs to look for Paul. In a hallway, she holds two soldiers at gunpoint and shoots one of them after failing to disclose her brother's whereabouts. The group's intentions become more desperate, resulting in them acting more violently toward their enemy. In the communication room, Ford stabs a soldier in the neck from behind to set timers as part of the plan to blow up the place. Underground, the soldier brings Chloe to the dens to mislead her that her brother is in there. He opens a cell, and she finds half a body lying on the floor. Luckily, Boyce gets to Chloe before she gets shot by the German soldier. Upon leaving, they see the zombie drag the soldier inside the cell to devour him. Both of them could not fathom what they saw, but with time as their enemy, they rush to continue to find Paul. As discreet as possible, they make it to the lab, where after some time, Paul calls for Chloe's name. She reunites with her brother, and they find their way to the exit. However, a mutated zombie drags Chloe back into the room. Paul escapes back to the village while Chloe distracts the zombie, shooting and fighting it. She manages to hit it after being attacked by it, but the wounds seem ineffective to slow it down. The zombie chases her across the hallway, but she eventually finds one of the flamethrowers and burns the zombie to death with it. Waffner, now mutated and possessing superhuman strength, discovers Ford planting explosives in the radio tower. He knocks him down and is planning something sinister. Meanwhile, as Boyce plants explosives in the central part of the lab, Dr. Schmidt holds a gun to his head and orders him to follow his orders. But, with all his strength, he attacks the doctor back, and they have a brawl. Dr. Schmidt attempts to knife Boyce, but he is unsuccessful and gets killed instead. Chloe returns to the village, where Tippett and Rosenfeld have been pursued and pinned down by the base's defenders. The shootout lasts for some time until Paul runs into the middle of the battlegrounds. Out of concern for the young boy's safety, Tippett is wounded while shielding Paul from gunfire. Finally, he safely brings Paul back to a shielded area, as Chloe ambushes and kills the remaining Germans and treats Tippett's wounds. In another part of the base, Waffner overpowers Ford, who he throws around the room before impaling him on a meat hook. He reveals to Ford that the serum was made by using the villagers' bodies to distill the ancient power of the black tar, which had been running under the village for centuries. The experiments aim to create immortal and invincible soldiers to serve Germany's mission. Boyce, who had previously finished planting explosives in the laboratory, ambushes Waffner but gets thrown away across the room. The zombie-like Waffner opens compartments that contain bodies of fallen soldiers injected with the serum. In the middle of this, Ford pulls himself off the meat hook and injects himself with a dose of the serum to heal his wounds instantly. Aware of the consequences, he sacrifices himself to stop Waffner and stab him from behind. Both of them recklessly fight each other as their bodies continue to disfigure in the process. Although Ford cannot defeat him, he manages to roll an oxygen tank to Waffner's feet, which Boyce then shoots. The explosion sends Waffner falling into the tar pit right at that moment. Boyce approaches their leader to help him get up, but Ford locks himself inside upon passing by the exit. He orders Boyce to leave him behind and detonate the explosives in the tower, believing neither side should possess the serum. After some convincing, Boyce follows his instructions just before Ford sets off the explosives in the lab, killing himself, the other zombies, and Waffner, who had mutated further and climbed out of the tar pit. Boyce sets a timer on the explosives and escapes in the communications room as the church and jamming tower collapse behind him, burying the laboratory and the rest of the building. The rest of the villagers gather outside as the radio announces the victory of the Allied forces in the war. Boyce reunites with Tippett, Rosenfeld, Chloe, and Paul in the village and sadly informs them that Ford did not make it. After the action wears off gradually, Boyce reports to a commanding officer about the mission. He credits Ford for being the reason for their success. The commanding officer asks Boyce about rumors of an underground lab in the church. Boyce, sharing Ford's view, denies seeing anything worth digging up. He now believes that the zombies and the human experiments should be kept unknown, or else more people will suffer the same fate as failed test subjects. Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.